Hello everyone, it's Nick. I know I'm a day late in wishing Kobe a happy heavenly 43rd birthday. However, I'm not late on social media, at least that. If you want to follow me, links are in the description. I'll follow you back. Today is August 24th though, 8/24. I do think it's fitting I still make this video on 8/24, Kobe Day. For the guy who made me fall in love with basketball, we miss you dearly, and I know I'm not the only one who says that, even though I never actually met him. So for today's video, for what should have been Kobe's 43rd birthday and also what is 8/24, I will be going over some underrated aspects of Kobe's career, and I'll also be debunking some notions about Kobe's career that I find straight up blasphemous and disrespectful to Kobe. It seems as if people already forgot how great Kobe was so quickly, or they just didn't watch his prime years. I'll tell you, I watched most of them. I started watching in 2001, which was the year he really became a bona fide superstar. 99 was the year that he made his first All-NBA team. So before we go any further, if you like seeing this kind of content, please consider liking the video. Only takes 1 second, really helps out. If you can please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell if you are new here. Your support would be much appreciated. Again, links to my social media are in the description. I'll follow you back. Let's get into it. I already debunked the notion that Shaq carried Kobe in this video up here if you want to check that out. I won't go so deep into that because I already went deep enough into it in this card up there. I will go over other things about Kobe that people believe that I find straight up disrespectful, and as well as some things about Kobe's career that I just don't think get enough credit. Johnny Arnett already did an amazing video debunking the notion that James Harden is a better scorer than Kobe. So while I'm not going to go over that in this video, I'm going to debunk the notion that Kevin Durant is a better scorer or better player than Kobe. If you genuinely believe that Kevin Durant is better than Kobe, yeah, you need to pull your head out right now. And I'll tell you why in this video. Sorry if I'm coming off a little abrasive, but it is something that I really feel strongly about. And not just as a Kobe fan, but as someone who I think knows the game of basketball pretty well. But just a disclaimer, this is not a video that's made to disrespect Kevin Durant in any way. Kevin Durant is a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest scorers of all time. One of the greatest players that I've ever seen play. But to compare him to Kobe, it's mind-boggling that I even have to talk about it. When we just look at stats, it may seem like, yeah, Kevin Durant is a better scorer than Kobe. Nick, what are you talking about? Look at this. Look how much more efficient Kevin Durant is. Well, stats with no context mean nothing. Kobe entered his prime when hand checking was still allowed. Do I think Kevin Durant would still get buckets with hand checking and less freedom of movement? Yes, but like he does now? No, definitely not. We need more than just stats to actually evaluate things. We gotta actually watch. Kevin Durant may have an easier time shooting over guys, but come on, that's more skillful than creating separation between you and your defender? On what planet? Now KD can score from all over. That is a gift that he has that most players don't. He can post up, but like Kobe? No, definitely not. Absolutely not. I am aware that there are advanced analytics that favor Kevin Durant, like his win shares per season, as well as VORP per season. If you don't know what VORP is, that stands for value over replacement player. You probably don't really need to know what it is though to actually know basketball. I really couldn't care less about advanced analytics. That's just my opinion though. But you know what? That leads me to a quote from my good friend DeMarcus Bernard. Basketball is not played on a spreadsheet. I think that most hoopers and ballers would actually agree with that assessment. Kevin Durant does not have the footwork, the quickness in his first step, and he most certainly doesn't have the ability to use his left like Kobe. I am convinced that if Kobe only used his left hand, he would actually be a somewhat decent player. I don't think I can say the same about Kevin Durant. Now, I'm not saying that there's no finesse in Kevin Durant's game at all. That would be foolish to say as well. Finesse like Kobe though? No, absolutely not. Kevin Durant can move without the ball though, I'll definitely give him that too. Something Kobe was also phenomenal at, but in an era with less freedom of movement. See, context matters too. Anyone can just look at stats, but you also have to consider the rules of the different eras that everyone played in. I also want to bring up some fun facts here. Want to know who's tied with Michael Jordan for most consecutive 40-point games by a guy not named Wilt Chamberlain? With 9? Kobe. Who has the most consecutive 50-point games by a guy not named Wilt Chamberlain? With 4? Kobe. In terms of what else Kobe is better at than KD, it gives me a headache to even have to say this, but unfortunately I do have to say it. Kobe was an unbelievably better passer than Kevin Durant ever was. When looking at the assist numbers, yes, that does favor Kobe, but so does the eye test. Even passes like this right here. Yeah, Kobe didn't get the assist on this play, but are you not impressed? If you're not, then whoa, what is it possibly going to take to impress you? Definitely nothing you see on Kevin Durant's passing highlights. I could pull up a whole bunch of them, but I want to just continue on with this subject about Kevin Durant being better than Kobe, being absolutely asinine, and as well as other things about Kobe. So another thing that I also have to mention, turnovers. Yes, Kobe averaged more turnovers per game, but we also have to look at the bigger picture. Kobe had a higher usage percentage as well as a lower turnover percentage. So yes, Kobe had the ball more, so of course he's more prone to turning the ball over. However, the rate he turned the ball over at was lower than the rate that Kevin Durant turned the ball over at. Let's also not forget how much better of a defender Kobe was than Kevin Durant. It's not even close. Kevin Durant was a very good defender in Golden State, but his best defensive years were when he made the Warriors a legit super team, when he also had Klay Thompson and Steph Curry to rely on for scoring, and didn't have as much pressure to score. Kobe was a great two-way player even in the years that he had to carry the scoring load after Shaq was traded and before the Lakers acquired Pau Gasol. Once again, I don't mean this as a way to disrespect Kevin Durant. In case KD is seeing this by any small chance, I respect your game. Like I said before, you are an all-time great, you are a future Hall of Famer, you can score from all over. As skilled as Kobe though, I think KD should even be able to say it himself, no he's not. I know he at least has the utmost respect for Kobe, but sorry, not sorry, I have to bring this up too. Did Kobe ever have to join a team that won 73 games without him and a team that he blew a 3-1 lead to win a championship? Nope. He may have had Shaq on his team, but like I said in my Hall of Fame video, Kobe absolutely did his part during the three-peat too. Even led the team in scoring during some of those playoff series during the three-peat. Now I also want to bring up the 81-point game. That's something we all know about, right? How many of you knew that Kobe only had 26 at halftime? Or the fact that the Lakers were down 28 in that game? So Kobe scored 55 points in the second half alone. You may be saying, but that was against a weak defense. And yeah, this may have been after a hand checking was banned, but scoring numbers were still nothing like they are now. When Kobe scored 81 points and had that season where he averaged 35 points per game, the league average for points per game that year was 97 per game. Kevin Durant only played one season where the league average was lower than that, and he averaged 27.7 points per game. Just this past season, league average was 112 points per game. So if Kevin Durant really was better than Kobe, Kevin Durant should be able to score 81 plus points in a game more than once. We can also look at that entire 2005 to 06 season, which was the year that Kobe scored 81 points in a game, and when he scored 35 points per game for the whole season and carried a bad team to the playoffs. If you really want to harp on the fact that Kobe scored 81 points in a game against a bad defense, how about the time he scored 62 in 3 quarters against the Mavericks just a month before that and single-handedly outscored the Mavericks in those 3 quarters. The Mavericks were the 8th ranked defense that year and made the finals. So there you go with discrediting Kobe's 81 points by saying it was against a bad team. Had Kobe played the 4th quarter against the Mavericks in the game he scored 62 in 3 quarters, he definitely could have scored at least 80 in that game. Despite leading the league in scoring in the 2005 to 06 season and carrying such a bad team, he was only 4th in MVP voting, thanks to a very below average supporting cast. Below average might even be an understatement, and sorry about the fan by the way. Let's also bring up more context about Kobe's 2005 to 06 season. 6 50-plus point games that season, including the 81-point game, 27 40-plus point games. This should say a whole lot about how MVP awards shouldn't be a definitive argument when ranking players. Of course, MVPs matter, but they're not end-all be-all. Because you know who votes for the MVP? The media. You know what they're all about? Narratives. And how many members of the media actually played at the highest level? Not that many. I would trust the guys who've actually been in the trenches, have actually played at the highest level, have played against and played with Kobe, more than the guys who've never played at the NBA level at all. Don't you agree? And speaking of narratives, I remember 2006 because I was 12 years old at the time. I may not remember every little detail like I remember in more recent years because again, I was 12 years old, but 12 years old is at least old enough to have any memory at all. So you know what I remember the narrative being that year? If the Lakers did not have Kobe, they would have been arguably the worst team of all time. Or at least right up there with the worst teams of all time. Kwame Brown's done roasting people, right? If I'm his next victim, whatever. Kwame Brown, Smush Parker, Chris Mim, Luke Walton, Brian Cook, only Lamar Odom was even competent, and you expect Kobe to lead that team to 60 wins in the Western Conference? Please. Same thing with the 2006 to 07 season, when Kobe averaged 31 per game. But let's stick to 2006 for now. Maybe 2007 will be for another video. Let's also keep in mind that Kobe's 35 points per game in 2006 came during a time when scoring numbers were much lower than they are now. Only 5 teams scored 100 plus points per game that year. Kobe's Lakers weren't one of them. Fun fact, by the way, I don't know if you knew this. If you didn't, I'm happy to be the one to tell you. Kobe is the only player to ever average 35 points per game in a season in which he also made the all-defensive first team. So now that we went over the 2006 season, which even though was the year we all know Kobe scored 81 in a game, scored 62 in 3 quarters, averaged his career high in points per game, it still tends to get overlooked. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the people who say that Pau Gasol should have won the 2010 Finals MVP. I think anyone who says that either is just being a hater or just didn't watch the series. I know I watched every single game of that series. Now if you want to talk about Game 7, 6 for 24 is not good. I agree with you there. But are we really going to act like Pau Gasol had an efficient game too? He came up huge, there's no doubt about that. 18 points and 19 rebounds. But if you want to look at efficiency that badly, it's definitely worse for a big man to shoot under 40% than a guard. Kobe also did get 15 rebounds, and most of them were very hard-fought rebounds. If you actually watched that Game 7, you would remember that was a very gritty and tough defense-first game. Almost everyone shot poorly in that game. It wasn't just Kobe. I also really hope anyone who believed this about Pau Gasol should have won Finals MVP isn't just looking at Game 7. Kobe single-handedly kept the team in the game throughout Game 5. He did also lead the team to victory in Games 1 and 6. Game 3 belonged to Derek Fisher because of his fourth quarter heroics, but Kobe still put up 29 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals, while Pau Gasol put up 13 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks. Yes, Pau shot a better percentage, and Kobe didn't even shoot 40%, but give the Celtics some credit too. And once again, big men are supposed to shoot a higher percentage than guards. And Pau Gasol shot under 50% in that Game 3. And that is definitely not good at all for a big man. Next thing I want to debunk, Bezos touched up on this a little bit, respect to him, but I want to get a little more into detail about this. The notion that Chris Paul was robbed of the MVP in 2008, keep in mind Pau Gasol was not on the team when the season started, and the Lakers were projected to be the 9th seed going into that season, even with Kobe. Pau Gasol came over at the deadline. The Lakers were 30-16 at the time of the Pau Gasol trade, which was good enough for the 4th best record in a very tough Western Conference. A Western Conference so tough, the Warriors couldn't even make the playoffs despite winning 48 out of 82 games that year. At the time of Andrew Bynum's injury, the Lakers had the 3rd best record in the Western Conference, and they were a 500 team after that and before Pau Gasol made his debut. So yes, it's absolutely true that the Lakers needed Pau Gasol to be the top team in the Western Conference that year. Kobe averaged less points per game than the previous 2 seasons because he shot less due to getting more help, with Andrew Bynum developing into a respectable center in the first half of the season before he got hurt, and Pau Gasol gave him a legit number 2 option on that team, as well as a much more stable point guard in Derek Fisher than Smush Parker. But with all this said, that still shouldn't take away from what Kobe was able to do that year. Kobe was still the man of a team that won 57 games, which was good enough for the best record in a loaded Western Conference, where the 8th seed won 50 games. The Lakers swept them in the first round, by the way. Now, I don't want to ever suggest that Kobe had a perfect career, or even a perfect prime. Definitely not. I would never try to act like the 2004 finals never happened. That was the lowest of the lows in Kobe's prime. However, one thing you can never ever question about Kobe's 2004 finals was if he tried hard enough. He went balls to the wall in that series. Poor decision making that cost him. He was still playing his ass off on defense though. He definitely should have fed the ball more to Shaq rather than try that hard to win finals MVP. But let's not forget Kobe's Game 2 heroics in that 2004 finals though, because without that the Lakers would have been swept. Let's also not forget that Gary Payton was no longer the glove and was completely washed, so was Karl Malone that year. Even before all that, the air balls in Utah. But you know what? He was still a teenager back then and wasn't afraid of the big moment. Shaq even went over to Kobe to tell him he respects the fact that as a young guy, still a teenager, he's not afraid to take those shots. Kobe didn't make any excuses though. He trained harder. He realized making the jump from high school to the NBA, the fact that he's never played that many games in a season in his life before that, he realized he didn't have it in his legs at that point because the shots were in line but short. Kobe may have had his failures. Believe it or not, he was a human being. No one's perfect. Even Michael Jordan, who is the GOAT in my eyes, had his failures too. Kobe didn't make excuses though. For him, it was all about figuring it out and try to do better next time. Now, blowing a 3-1 lead in 2006 was not a good look. Shooting only 3 times in the second half of Game 7, that was certainly not a good look. However, he did score 50 points in Game 6 of that series. Don't forget that. Also, his buzzer beater to send the game to overtime and the buzzer beater to win the game, which happened to be when Gigi was born. That was a series that the Lakers weren't supposed to win anyways with that awful squad that they had. One thing we should all admire is his ability to respond to adversity and not make excuses. I will admit that the fact that over a year later this pandemic is still far from over, that's taken a toll on my mental health, and I could say I could do better myself. I should try to watch more Kobe interviews. Let's not look any further than this interview right here about how Kobe went about adversity. Even after winning 3 championships in a row, this is how he looked after losing, but this is how he answered questions about it.
Kobe, it's a difficult moment for you. We appreciate your time. How disappointed are you?
Well, I just hate losing. It's a tough loss. They played extremely well. We just have to get ready for the off season. Next season for us starts right now.
Can you assess exactly what went wrong? Was it too many injuries? Was it Shaq's foot at the beginning of the year? Can you begin to assess why you lost this series?
Nah, we have a million and one excuses that we could go to. Fact of the matter is, we're not going to make any. They played better than we did in this series. We had our opportunities to win it. Didn't go for us. So we just have to regroup. Like I said, next season starts right now, and come back next season and play.
How much harder will you work in this offseason now to get back to the championship?
I'll push myself to exhaustion.
Kobe, we thank you for your time.
I hope you listen carefully. Not one excuse is made. That's the Mamba mentality right there. Or how about this interview after the 2008 finals?
Kobe, you won the MVP, you led the team to the finals. How do you characterize this season?
Well, the goal was to win a championship. It wasn't to win MVP or anything like that. It was to win a championship. So, from that aspect, we failed.
Yeah, winning MVP sure meant nothing to him. Winning above all else. What did he do the very next 2 seasons after that crushing loss to the Celtics? Win. Sure, stats alone may not make it seem like he really did make Pau Gasol better, but actually he did, in a way that stats won't show for. Kobe made him tougher. Pau Gasol was weak in the 2008 finals. I think anyone who actually watched that series when it was happening would agree with that. Yes, it's wrong to say Pau Gasol deserved to win Finals MVP in 2010. However, we know Pau Gasol very much had plenty to do with winning. I wouldn't discredit him at all. Just Finals MVP is definitely pushing it. In case anyone watching this never heard this story before, I'm more than happy to be the one to tell you. Before the 2008-09 season, just after Kobe and Team USA beat Pau Gasol in Spain in the gold medal game in the Olympics, Kobe put his gold medal in Pau Gasol's locker to motivate him. He told him, "You lost to the Celtics, you lost to us in the Olympics, let's not lose again." So that's going to wrap it up. If you didn't need this video to learn something new, that's fine. If that is you and you were just nodding your head like, yeah, this is so true, I'm glad you felt that way. If you learned something new, I'm glad to be the one to have taught you something new. If you still disagree with me about anything I said, well, I guess you just can't satisfy everyone. But to me, saying that Kobe is not a top 10 player of all time,
that is blasphemous. That is blasphemous.
I think it's reasonable to say Kobe's not a top 5 player of all time, but to me, he's definitely borderline top 5 at the very least. So that'll do it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you could please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell, letting me know what you think in the comments, as well as following me on social media, that'd be much appreciated. I'm about to sign off here. Thank you so much. Once again, happy belated birthday to Kobe now that it's a day after his birthday, as well as happy 8/24 Kobe Day. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.